Myself, Dr. Khushbu Chaudhary, Assistant Professor in Pediatric GMC Surat. Today we will discuss about the enteric fever in children. Now, what is enteric fever? It is also known as the typhoid fever. Typhoid fever, it is an acute illness associated with the fever caused by the Salmonella typhi bacteria. It can be also caused by some other bacteria like Salmonella paratyphi, which produces the mild symptoms than the Salmonella typhi bacteria. Now, it is the food and the waterborne disease. The bacteria are deposited in the water and food by the human carrier and then spread to the other people. What is the etiology? It is spread by the Salmonella, which is purely gram-negative bacilli. It belongs to the Salmonella enterica serovar typhi S typhi. Rarely it can be produced by the Salmonella paratyphi A and paratyphi B. The ratio of the Salmonella typhi and to Salmonella paratyphi B is 10:1. Means that it is more common associated with the Salmonella typhi than the Salmonella paratyphi. It includes two antigens. First one is somatic or O antigen polysaccharide. Second one is flagellar or H antigen that induces antibody formations. How it transmits? It transmits through the fecal-oral route. Food and water contaminated with the Salmonella typhi from the human feces is the most common cause. Waterborne outbreak due to poor sanitation, oyster and shellfish cultivated in the contaminated waters, and also the spread to the fomites like the flies and cockroach. Incubation period of the enteric fever is between the 4 to 14 days. What are the predispositions factors to the infection? That are virulence of the organism. Means if the organism is more virulent or if the load is more, the symptoms are more and more severe. Then second is host factors. If child's or children's or patient's immunity is lower down or there is associated other comorbidities like severe acute malnutrition, low birth weight, failure to thrive, or predisposed to the other organism which decreases the immunity, then it spread the infections. It is high risk associated with the HIV infected and H. pylori infected individuals. Now, what is the pathogenesis? When the bacteria enters in the body by any means like water and food contaminations or through the poor sanitation or through the fomites like the flies and cockroach. Salmonella typhi attaches to the M cells of the enterocyte lining the terminal ileum. Then it goes to the Peyer's patch and residence in the macrophage. Means it deposited in the macrophage and Peyer's patches. Then goes to the mesenteric lymph nodes and produces primary bacteremia. From that it transmits into the liver, then through the reticular endosystems of the bodies, liver, spleen, gallbladder and to the bone marrow, and causes to the secondary bacteremia that causes the widespread dissemination. And if through the primary bacteremia, it goes to the liver and again goes to the Peyer's patches that will lead to the re-exposed to the Salmonella typhi while and produces the reinfections. Now we will see what are the clinical features. The incubation period of the typhoid fever is usually for or 7 to 14 days, but it depends on the infecting dose, ranges between the 3 to 30 days. The clinical presentation varies from the mild illness, which are low-grade fever, malaise, slightly or dry cough, then to the severe clinical pictures like abdominal discomfort and multiple complications. These are the common clinical features of the typhoid fever in the children. Most common associated symptoms is high-grade fever, which includes 95%, then spotted tongue 76%, anorexia 70%, vomiting, hepatomegaly 39-37%, diarrhea 36%, toxicity, it produces toxicity and severe symptoms in 29%, causes abdominal pain in 21%, pallor 20%, splenomegaly 70%, constipation in 7%, headache in 4%, jaundice, obtundation in the 2%, and very rarely but sometimes it is common, ileus and intestinal perforation, which includes 1 to 0.5%. Diarrhea, toxicity and DIC are the common in the infancy and that lead to the high case fatality rates and more morbidities and mortality. Other symptoms like relative bradycardia, neurological manifestations and GI bleeding, which are rare in the children. In 25% of the case, there is a particular rash, maculopapular rash. It is also known as the rose spots. It is visible on the 7th to 10th day of the illness, occurs in the crops of the 10 to 15 numbers on the lower chest and abdomen, and it can be last with the 2 to 3 days. It is associated with the fever, so we have to differentiate the causes of the fever with rash, like rashes may be due to measles or chickenpox or other viral illness. What can be the complications? The complications, CNS symptoms occurs in the 3 to 35%. What are the risk factors for that? If residents in the endemic areas that are more prone to the enteric fever, trauma, surgery, meningitis, osteomyelitis of the skull, paranasal sinus infections, CHD, pulmonary infections. What can be the complications? The complications like the encephalopathy, cerebral edema, cerebral abscess, subdural empyema, meningitis, ventriculitis, seizure, ataxia, motor neuron disease, psychosis, transient Parkinsonism. So any patients with fever, with rash, with in case of the altered sensorium or convulsions, we have to rule out the causes. It can be with the enteric fever, it can be the viral encephalitis. So to rule out this, we have to do all the investigations of the typhoid fever. In CVS system, it is prevalence is 1 to 5%. Risk factors are CHD or existing previous cardiac anomalies like congenital heart disease, rheumatic heart disease, or any deformities. What can be the complications? Endocarditis, myocarditis, pericarditis, arthritis, or congenital heart failure. In case of the pulmonary system, prevalence is 1 to 6%. What are the risk factors? Risk factors are the residents in the endemic region, past history of the pulmonary infection, sickle cell anemia, HIV, diabetes. In case of the sickle cell anemia, there are more chances of the capsulated gram-positive and gram-negative infections. What are the complications? Pneumonia, empyema, bronchopleural fistula. Other system involved is bone and joint involvement. Its prevalence is less than 1%, but it is also common with sickle cell anemia, diabetes, surgery, trauma, lymphoma, or steroid uses. Complications are osteomyelitis, septic arthritis. It is more common osteomyelitis and septic arthritis in the younger age group. Other system is hepatobiliary system. Its prevalence is 1 to 26%. What are the risk factors? Residents in the endemic area, pyogenic infections, IV drug uses, HIV, hemoglobinopathy. The complications are cholecystitis, hepatitis, hepatic abscess, splenic abscess, peritonitis, and paralytic ileus. In case of the genitourinary system, its prevalence is less than 1%. Risk factors are pelvic pathology. Some pre-existing conditions like patient has congenital renal deformities or repeated urinary tract infections, or some other congenital malformations like multicystic dysplastic kidneys. What are the complications are urinary tract infections, pelvic abscess, testicular abscess, renal abscess, and epididymitis. In soft tissue infections, it is seen very rarely in the children. Risk factor are diabetes, and complications are psoas abscess, gluteal abscess, cutaneous vasculitis. Hematological prevalence is very less. It's also risk factors diabetes and hemophagocytis syndromes are most common. Okay. Now, what are the lab investigations? How can we say that it is the case of the typhoid fever? Any patient presents with you with the children age group less than 12 years with history of high-grade fever, abdominal pain, vomiting, nausea, and particularly if patient are having rash, like we see that rose spots, which is seen into 2 to 3 days, 10 to 15 the number on the lower chest abdomen, we have to rule out all the causes of the fever with rash. To rule out the other causes, where the primary investigations will do this, complete blood count. In this case, CBC, we will see the hemoglobin level, which is the hemoglobin level, total counts, platelets, and peripheral smear. In case of the enteric fever, there may be low leukocytes count and thrombocytopenia may be seen. Renal function test, majority we see with the perfusion issue, if the patient's hydration is maintaining or not, if renal injury is there or not. Liver function test, many patients of the enteric fever may have the complications like enteric fever, hepatitis. We have to look out the liver function test for SGPT, SGOT level, what is the bilirubin level. If there is a more chance of the more infection, severe illness, if patient is in altered sensorium, then PT, APTT and other coagulation profiles are also needed. Urine routine micro to rule out other causes of the fever, that is urinary tract infections and all. Ultrasonography if indicated means if the patient having history of the high-grade fever with abdominal pain, with cardiac rigidity, then we have to look for the, if there are complications of the enteric fever like any ascites or pulmonary sepsis, then on. Diagnosis, then mainstream of the diagnosis is blood culture. It is seen positive in the 40 to 60% of the patients in the early course of the disease. What is the culture media used for that? It is McConkey agar, non-lactose fermenting pale colonies. XLD agar, it is H2S producing Salmonella produce pink red colonies with the black centers. It is unreliable because of the low sensitivity, because of the widespread use of the antibiotics. If a patient comes, we start with the antibiotics or previously patient has taken antibiotic, there are chances of the false negative results. Bone marrow culture is more sensitive for the diagnosis, but it is impractical because in every case of the patient we can't do bone marrow. It is invasive and difficult to obtain. Second one is Vidal test. It is a serological test that detects the somatic O antigen in the blood. It also includes the high rates of the false positive and the false negative values due to history of the enteric fever, if patient has taken previously vaccination of the typhoid, and general antibody level in the population. Rise in the antibody titer after 7 to 14 days to confirm the diagnosis to see. Positive if O titer is more than 1:160 means it is only become confirmatory positive after the 70-14 of the test. It may be negative in the first 7 days of the symptoms. Urine and stool cultures are not used routinely. These are some newer tests which are used now. Tubex test. What is Tubex test? Tubex test contains two types of the particles. Brown magnetic particles coated with the antigen and blue indicator particles coated with O9 antibody. During this test, if antibodies of the typhoid are present in the serum, then it will get attached to the brown magnetic particles and settle down at the base, and blue indicator of the particles remain up in the solution. So in this test, if the color of the fluid is blue color, it indicates the positivity of the test. If the serum does not have any antibody in it, then the blue particles get attached to the brown particles and settle down at the bottom, giving no color to the solution, which means the test is negative and they do not have typhoid fever. Detects only IgM O9 antibodies, it not detect IgG antibodies, means it is useful in the acute infection only. Prolonged or chronic carrier set we cannot detect. Second newer test is TIFI-DOT. It uses 50 kD antigen to detect IgM and IgG antibodies. This test is based on the prevalence of the specific IgM and IgG antibodies to a specific 50 kD OMP antigen. This test is carried out on the cellulose nitrate membrane where a specific Salmonella typhi outer membrane protein is attached to the fixed test line. It separately identifies IgG and IgM both antibodies. IgM shows the recent infection whereas IgG signifies remote or past infection. So this test is useful in the both infections, recent infection as well as remote infection. IgM is acute infection, IgG and IgM acute infection in the middle phase. IgG can be persist up to 2 years after infection. Can't differentiate between the acute or covalent phases. TIFI-M detects the specific IgM, rapid and accurate diagnosis in the areas of the high endemicity. Now what is the treatment? First of all, we receive the patients in the OPD or our casualty department with high-grade fever, with rashes and decreased appetite. We see our normal protocols ABC, airway, breathing, circulation is normal or not. If patient is not taking orally, then we have to give IV fluids or nasogastric fluids. In case patient has tachypnea or respiratory rate or high, we can give to the oxygen. Now what is the mainstay of the therapy? Antibiotics. In case of the uncomplicated typhoid fever, fully sensitive chloramphenicol and amoxicillin. What is the dose? Chloramphenicol dose is 50 to 75 mg per kg per day, given for the 14 to 21 days. Alternative drugs is fluoroquinolone, dose is 15 mg per kg per day, which is given for the 5 to 7 days. If we give amoxicillin, dose is 75 to 100 mg per kg per day, and it is also given for the 14 days. Multi-drug resistant fluoroquinolone or cefixime. Fluoroquinolone, it is given on the dose of the 15 mg per kg per day. Oral cefixime is given for the 15 to 20 mg per day for 14 days. Alternative drug is azithromycin, 8 to 10 mg per kg per day, and it is given for the 7 days. Cefixime 15 to 20 mg per kg per day for 7 to 14 days. Quinolone resistant, so we can start with the azithromycin with the dose of 8 to 10 mg per kg per day, total for 7 days. Or alternative ceftriaxone 75 mg per kg per day, total 10 to 14 days. Alternative is cefixime 20 mg per kg per day for the 7 to 14 days. If severe typhoid fever, then we will start with the fluoroquinolone 15 mg per kg per day for total 10 to 14 days. Alternative antibiotic we are using chloramphenicol and amoxicillin. In case of the multi-drug resistant, we will start with the fluoroquinolone 15 mg per kg per day, total 10 to 14 days. Alternative drug is ceftriaxone or cefotaxime. Ceftriaxone is 60 mg per kg per day. Cefotaxime is 80 mg per kg per day. Duration is same, 10 to 14 days total. In case of quinolone resistant, we will start with ceftriaxone 60 mg per kg per day. Cefotaxime 80 mg per kg per day. Total days 10 to 14 days. Alternative drug is azithromycin, which is 10 to 20 mg per kg per day for total 7 days. What are the drugs? Ceftriaxone, it is the bactericidal drug, fastest acting drugs. All strains of these S. typhi and MDR strains are susceptible for this. Preferred in the children, pregnancy and acute fluoroquinolone resistance. Fluoroquinolone in the gram-negative organism, it acts by inhibit the DNA gyrase enzyme in the Salmonella typhi. In gram-positive organism, fluoroquinolone inhibits topoisomerase 4. Azithromycin, it inhibits the protein synthesis. It is the second alternative in the MDR strains. Chloramphenicol, now mostly resistant, so not common most commonly. Cotrimoxazole, now plasmid mediated MDR has spared, so rarely used. So our main line of stream drugs are, if patient is taking orally well, patient has only mild symptoms, history of fever, and home-based care is possible, we start with the cefixime with the doses 15 to 20 mg per kg per day for total 14 days, and other symptomatic drugs like paracetamol if history of fever, and some suppression, cough suppression if history of cough, for antacids for decrease gastric acidity, pantoprazole or domperidone if patient has very history of vomiting with danger sign explained. If we indore the patient, we start with the ceftriaxone. If it is not or cefotaxime, it is not responded by ceftriaxone, we start with the fluoroquinolones or azithromycin. Now, what is the prognosis? The prognosis for the patient with enteric fever, it depends on the rapidity of the diagnosis and institution of the appropriate antibiotic therapy. Means when the patient comes to us, which are the symptoms, what is the diagnosis, the titer of the test, Vidal test, and treatment. If patient is taking haphazardly treatment, means total case antibiotic not completed previously, many patients are coming with us with the recurrence of the infection, and that time we have to give higher antibiotics and for the more durations. Other factors are the patient's age, general state of the health, nutrition, the causative Salmonella serotype, and the appearance of the complications. Infants and children with underlying malnutrition and patients infected with the multi-drug resistant isolates are at high risk for adverse outcomes. Despite appropriate therapy, 2 to 4% of the infected children may experience relapse after the clinical response to the treatment. Individuals who exceed Salmonella typhi for greater than or equal to 3 months after the infections are regarded as the chronic carriers. The risk for becoming a carrier is low in the children. In the children, it is less than 2% for all infected children and increases with age. Means in the pediatric or children age group, the chances of recurrence are rare, less than 2%. But in the older age group, there are the chances of more. Many patients are going in the carrier state and developing the recurrent or remote infections. Chronic urinary carrier state can develop in the children with the schistosomiasis. Now, what is the prevention? How can we prevent the enteric fever? One of the major risk factors for the outbreaks of the typhoid contamination of water supplies with the sewage. It is the most important factor. Other risk factors of the development of the typhoid fever are congestion, contact with the another patients or a febrile individuals, and lack of water and sanitary service. For prevention of this disease, we have to look out for the modes of transmission. As we have seen previously, the typhoid fever and enteric fever, it is mostly spread through the contamination of the food and water. Though main aim of the prevention of the outbreaks of the typhoid fever is reduce the contamination of the water supply with proper sewage and sanitation, means locally hand hygiene, sanitation, proper facilities should be available. Other risk factors for development of the typhoid fever are congestion. Like in many patients there is no separation per capita per room, many relatives or many houses small, many patients are living in the same house with the active infections, then contact with the another patients or the febrile individual, and in many cases in the periphery in the area there is a lack of water and sanitization services, so chances of spread are very often. Now other ways of the prevention of is typhoid vaccine. Now available vaccines are 2 licensed for the use for the prevention of the typhoid fever. One is the live oral TY21 vaccine. It is also known as sold as Vivotif by Crucial Switzerland AG. And the other one is injectable typhoid polysaccharide vaccine. It is sold as the Typhim VI by Sanofi Pasteur and Typhirix by GlaxoSmithKline. Both are the efficacious and recommended for travelers to the areas where typhoid is endemic. The vaccines are currently recommended for anyone traveling into the endemic areas, but a few countries have introduced large-scale vaccination strategies. Boosters are recommended every 5 years for the 2 oral vaccine and every 2 years for the injectable form. An oral live attenuated preparation of the Typhi21A strain of S. typhi has been shown to have good efficacy, means 67 to 80% for up to 5 years. It is previously used well form because its efficacy was good, 67 to 82%, and it was covering the age group up to 5 years. It means 5 years we can prevent the infection of the typhoid fever without any risk factors. Significant adverse effects are rare. The VI capsular polysaccharide can be used in the people greater than 2 years of age. It is given as the single intramuscular dose with a booster every 2 years, and it is have a protective efficacy of 70 to 80 years. In the old immunization schedule, it is not commonly given to the every pediatric age group patients. But now, according to the IAP classifications, the newer vaccine, which is used for as the VI polysaccharide vaccine, which can be used in the people greater than 2 years of age, it is more commonly used now because every are aware and conscious about it, and it is given as the single intramuscular dose. It can be given up to, if vaccine is safe, with a booster every 2 years. It has protective efficacy of 70 to 80%. So patients are giving now this more and more vaccinations. We should give their proper knowledge about the proper nutrition, proper hygiene, proper sanitation facilities. If patients are admitted with us with the history of the high grade fever with rashes, we should always monitor for the morbidities and complications. If patient admitted with sick looking, toxic lung, we have to give IV fluids, because if we not give IV fluids and proper hydration is not maintained, the chances of the complications are more, like renal failure, renal injury, then other reduced blood pressure, then needed of antibiotics are more, then inotrox may be required in some cases. If patients meanwhile develops the convulsion or altered sensorium, we can go with the CSF examinations, because we have to rule out the primary cause, or there is the co-infection of the other infections, like any viral illness in case of the patients with fever with altered sensorium with encephalopathy. Okay, after CSF examination, our CSF examination is normal and patient is persistent in the comatose positions or in the altered sensorium or repeated convulsion, we can go for the MRI brain. In that case, along with the antibiotics, we should give the other symptomatic drugs and supportive drugs like acyclovir to control any coexisting viral infections. Then if we have to rule out the Plasmodium antigen like malarial fever, because these are the most common causes of the high-grade fever with rash. So, any patient come to us with high-grade fever, we should always rule out the other causes also, because there are many chances of the co-infection of the other disease, like if patient is having typhoid or positive outside, but we have to rule out for the malaria also, as well as UTI also, and other causes also. Okay. Then we have to give our treatment properly, management properly, and monitor vitals like urine output, proper urine output of the 24 hours, then blood pressures, then SpO2 monitoring if patient is having respiratory distress or anything else. When will we decide these patients? If patient is taking orally well, appetite is improved, patient has no fever spikes in 24 to 48 hours and responding to treatment well. And we should make sure that patient will take proper medicines with proper doses with complete duration. Because if there is the lack of the treatment or there will be some missing of the treatment after home discharge, there are more chances of recurrence of the infections. Okay, then total 14 days of the antibiotics cefixime or azithromycin should be completed. Patient can record temperature by their own at the home and come back to us if again symptoms develops. Then other supportive drugs, like if patient has still gastric acidity or intolerance of the food or vomiting, then domperidone, Domstal and pantoprazole to reduce the gastric acidity. Again, after we call this patient after the 14 days of the home treatment and watch or see for the symptoms. If patient is not having any symptoms now, then we call them the routine regular follow-up. And we also give them the vaccination, which is given at the booster every 2 years, because it has efficacy of 70-80%. In also pediatric age group also there are 2% of the chances of the reinfections.